program, because probably you have been selected out of many who had made an application for the PhD program. And of course, nowadays the degree of PhD holds a lot of importance. I would also like to tell you, being in the field of education for the last 4 decades, 40 years in the University of Bangalore, involved in research, and I have been teaching this subject, research methodology and statistics, for the last almost 35 years. Let me tell you, though that whatever the PhD degree that you are going to obtain, it may be for a social desirability, it may be for your promotion, maybe for your other higher pursuits. But apart from that, research is such an endeavor where one needs to be very, very sincere, and one needs to be very, very hardworking. Because research is not just, it's a very, very serious venture. It is not just a one-shot single adventure. Because whenever you take up research, we also think of like what likely contribution that it is going to have. So apart from the degree that you are going to hold or you are going to acquire, but still take your research seriously, because there is no, as I believe, that there is no shortcut to success. So research requires a lot of endurance, research requires a lot of hard work, it requires a sincerity, because the first part I have just taken up on sources and criteria for selection of a research topic or a research problem. Usually we say it is a research problem rather than a topic. Just you are all starting your initiative into research, getting into research. I have just used the word topic. And my second session would be on the limitations and ethical considerations of research when you are conducting in the field of education. Education here I don't mean just merely the subject education. So whatever the, because we have medical research, we are having the technical research, we are having the educational research, as teachers, all of you, whatever, whether it is a science, social science, behavioral sciences, or education. So all education done in the field of education, okay. So from that point of view, what are the limitations and ethical considerations one needs to have whenever you are conducting a research? That would be the second part of my presentation. So just some 4 years back, UGC introduced this very important paper that is on research and publication ethics, because there are a lot of ways, many, I think many of you who are already working, those who know like how usually the many a times the research is manipulated and how research is produced. So in order to prevent that, one need to follow as a researcher the publication ethics, and also one need to have the ethical considerations while conducting the research. So that would form the second part of my presentation. So since you are all starting your research, one of the very, very main important thing that one wonders and one try to question, like how do I start my research? So where do I get my research topic, and what is a suitable topic? How would I feel that whatever the research that I have taken up, the topic that I have selected, whether it will have a futuristic, what I say, that progress or futuristic career, or maybe does it have a scope? So whenever we are selecting a topic for a research, one need to be very, very careful. And it is not that the research topic is selected from vacuum. So there are various ways that a research topic is selected, and those ways we call it as sources. So there are a few sources from which that all of you can select your research topic or maybe a research problem. And apart from that, whenever you are selecting a problem, one needs to keep it in mind when you are finalizing your problem, certain criteria for selecting that problem or finalizing that problem. So that is the topic of presentation in my today's this first session. And whenever you have a doubt that you want to ask anything, no problem, you can stop me and you can raise a question and you can clarify the doubts, or maybe you want to add your observations, or maybe you want to have any clarification, you can do so. Not necessarily that you should wait for end of the session. So anybody has any queries, that you can do so even in between the session too. So the first session that we would deal with the sources and criteria for selection of a research topic. As we all know that research proposal, like you all might have already selected your guides or whatever it is, and they might have asked you to select a topic and prepare a proposal. So even before this proposal is created, let alone conducting research. So conducting research is a later aspect, right? And preparing a proposal also requires the problem identification. You cannot prepare a proposal suddenly without having a topic in hand. So you need to first select a topic or select a problem. Only then you can go for preparing a proposal. Then your research is started. Then you start conducting your research. So from that point of view, so identifying a research and to address and then question or questions to ask regarding your targeted problem. Whatever the topic that you have selected, that you are finalizing, so it is not just merely selection of a topic. When once you select a topic, you need to answer certain questions, and those questions are in the form of a criteria. Only when those criteria are fulfilled, only then you can go ahead with your research problem. So now, the identification of a research problem is the first and foremost step that every researcher has to undertake. And here, it becomes very difficult for any inexperienced researcher, for that matter, that how to select a problem. That is what, when somebody, or maybe guide, or maybe your teachers, that maybe the guiding, or whoever is the teacher that you are taking for guiding you, when they say that you select a problem or you come up with a problem, you must be wondering like how would I go about selecting the problem. And now it becomes difficult for a novice, or maybe for a beginner, or maybe a researcher who was just starting. Novice in the sense the person who has not conducted research earlier. A beginner, a person who is maybe, most of you must have done your dissertation or must have done at your postgraduate level, maybe a project or whatever it is. You must be having some idea. But now for a PhD program, one needs to be quite serious with regard to problem selection. So here, the research problem selection becomes a very, very important criteria for anybody to taking up a good research work. Because whatever the research that you are going to conduct, that particular research work, that whether that research has got a scope or not, whether that would be relevant or not, whether it will help you in your career or not, it all depends on what type of topic that you have selected or what type of problem that you have selected. So one needs to be, this is a very, very important first step, that is selection of a topic or a selection of a research problem. So usually, in general, the research problem should be understood at some difficulty or unclear situation which a researcher experiences in practical or theoretical context and wants to obtain a tangible explanation or clarification or offer solutions to it. Usually, whenever using the word problem or a research problem is something where you feel that there is no clarity with regard to some situation or with some context. You want to find a very clear-cut solution to that. You want to find out like how best I can do in order to see that that problem is solved. So here, when you are selecting a problem, that problem can be of importance like practical importance, or it may be of theoretical importance. It can be of practical importance or theoretical importance, or it can be both. So that way, whenever you are selecting a problem, one needs to keep it in mind. Whenever you are having a problem, so your problem should be such that you have to throw certain questions, and for all the questions, you should find the answer in yes. When you find the answer in yes for all the questions, then only you have to go ahead with finalizing such a research topic. And a problem can be anything that a person finds unsatisfactory or unsettling, or a difficulty of some sort, or a state of affairs that needs to be changed, and a research problem is a focus of a research investigation. So whenever you are having a situation which is unsatisfactory. Whenever you are having a situation which is uncomfortable, so in that case, usually you want to change the situation. You want to find a satisfactory answer to that. You want to make your surroundings comfortable. So for that you start investigating. So from that point of view, that means any research problem will have a solution. So finding a solution methodologically, finding a solution using certain steps, finding a solution using certain sample, using certain statistical tools, using certain techniques, using certain procedures, using certain like questionnaires, right, doing the interpretation, coming to a conclusion and just saying, okay, this is the solution, this is how I want to interpret it. So that is how that I would say that I have found a solution to a particular problem. Now a research problem is a definite or a clear expression or a statement about an area of concern, a condition to be improved upon, a difficulty to be eliminated, or a trouble question that exists in scholarly literature in theory or within existing practice that points to need for meaningful understanding and deliberate investigation. So the research problem, usually whenever we say that it is a problem, here it is already said, it is you are stating it in the form of a statement. You are stating it in the form of a statement, and that particular statement should tell you what exactly that you are going to investigate. Because usually the topic, whenever somebody reads a topic, they should be able to understand, they should be able to know what exactly you are investigating, what you are trying to find out, right? What is the solution that you are looking for? So that is very, very important. So within that is whether it may be a solution to a theoretical aspect, or it may be a solution to a practical aspect, or it may also be a solution to both. It can be either one or it can be both. Many times, like whenever you are having a very, very vague topic or a value-based question, sometimes it becomes very, very difficult in order to clarify or in order to find a solution. So a research problem does not state how to do something, offer a vague or a broad proposition, or present a value question. In search for a research problem, there are certain areas or resources from which the topic can be selected. Usually, whenever we go through or whenever we read a research topic or a problem, usually we understand what exactly the investigator is trying to do, what exactly the investigator is trying to understand, how the investigator is trying to solve a problem. But it does not tell you how to go about methodologically. The topic does not suggest. It is the proposal which you are, depending on the topic, the proposal which you prepare will give you proposal. It is like just like a blueprint. It will tell you how to go about with your problem. But now we are just limiting it only to selection of a topic. When you are selecting a topic, there are a few sources from which a topic can be selected. Here, I may not be going for all these, but a few very important ones, like which we usually use in the field of academics, right? In the field of education, whenever you are selecting a problem, that we will deal with it very in an elaborate manner. But there can be some of the sources of a research problem. It can be through brainstorming. That means you can have number of people or experts from the field, and you can just talk to those people, ask the people to talk about the problem in the situation, talk about the topic that needs to be investigated from among them. You can narrow it down and you can select a research topic. That is through brainstorming. It is intuition. Intuition, all of a sudden you experience a problem, all of a sudden you experience a difficulty. So you want to start investigating, you want to find a solution to that particular problem because suddenly you have felt a difficulty. So that can be through intuition, it can be folklores. We are having a lot of folklores, and that means that will give way in order to investigate, because folklores many times sometimes they are oral, there are many attempts, they are unwritten, you do not know like what is the origin of it, right? So you can start investigating and you can find out like what's its origin, who did it and who is its originator. So that can also be a source. Exposure to field situations, maybe in a practical situation when there is a difficulty, when the situation around has created a problem. So in order to find out a solution to that difficulty around us, that maybe in the field you can take up a particular problem because you are encountering a difficulty in the field or maybe in the area where you are working or where you are staying, or it can be consultation with the experts, people who are already, who have been involved in conducting the research, like maybe the research guides or maybe the people who are already working in the field, they can be consulted, you can have discussion with them, you can talk to them, what are the important areas of research, or usually areas of research whenever we are talking about, usually you are talking about maybe the areas of research which has relevance for present day, or relevance maybe for the immediate future, or maybe a long-term future. So what type of problems will have a lot of relevance or a scope in future? So you can have discussions with the experts, or it can also be a personal experience. You are all teachers, you are working in a field of education, maybe at college level or school levels or wherever you are working, you may be encountering so many difficulties, or you may also be encountering certain difficulties around you that may require some sort of attention, that may require some sort of investigation, right? So from that point of view, your personal experience can also be an indicator in order to choose a research problem. And it can also be the practical experience. You are working in a particular field, or you are having a practical experience or a know-how of something. You may further add up to that using your practical experience. You may further investigate and you may find a solution to that. And apart from that, maybe the previous researchers, the researchers already done in the field of maybe whether it is science or pure science or maybe social sciences or education. So already researchers have been done. So what type of researchers have been done, how it is being done, what methodology is being used. So that can be of great help to the researchers, maybe the novice or maybe to the beginners. And apart from that, maybe the existing theories can also help for verification. There are a few theories, there are a lot of theories, whether they are science, whether they are social sciences or psychology, education, there are a lot of theories. And you can just try to check its validity in a situation where whether that can be implied or whether that can be whatever the implications are there, and those implications holds good to your classroom situations or in your personal life, and once again those theories can be checked. And there may be social issues around us, and that may require some sort of investigation, and that may require some sort of a solution to that, and that can also be a source for selecting a problem. So we are not concentrating, not just because they are all the different sources. When it comes to the academics, because research can be done by anybody. It can be done by a layman, it can be done by a scientist, it can be done by a lab assistant, it can be done by a homemaker, it can be, that is, in order to solve their own problems, they may investigate something, they may do something, they may solve a problem, everything that cannot be called as a research, because research has certain definite steps to be followed. Research has certain procedures to be followed. Research has maybe, like we may say that it has got a linear method in order to follow, in order to find a solution to a problem. So usually in the field of maybe academics, usually people, they go for these type of sources in order to select a problem. One is a very, very important source for selecting a problem is review of related literature. So the review of related literature is of utmost importance. Because I would like to say, compared to the all other, the 1, 2, 3, 4 other whatever maybe the other things that I have given, compared to all other sources, the review of related literature is considered to be the most significant and most important source for selecting a problem. So why do we select so what is the use? Why do we go for selection of a research problem? I'll just go through the other and then we will go to the one by one. And the next one is theories. Just now I was telling there are so many established theories are there. So in order to find out the implications, how far they hold good to your situation, what is its validity in your present situation, the theories can also help you. And maybe experts' opinion, just as I said, so maybe people who are already working in the field, from whether they are from pure sciences, social sciences, behavioral sciences, or whatever it is, maybe you can have discussion with them, with those people in order to select a problem. Funding agencies. So there are funding agencies, I don't know, maybe people who are working in higher education, those who are college teachers or university teachers, you all know there are state governments, there are central government like UGC, MHRD, right? And there are various other science funding agencies, central government, state government, private agencies, they fund. So those funding agencies, they have certain goals, they have certain important themes. They want the research to be done on those themes, or they want certain things to be investigated and results to be given to them. So from that point of view, usually research is done based on what is the expectation or what is being required by the funding agencies also. And once again I have spoken about the personal experience. When it comes to the review of related literature, which I said is a very important and a very significant source for selecting a problem for any beginner or for any novice, right, in order to select a problem. Why do we go for the review of related literature? What does it mean, review of related literature? Like people who are in the field of education or psychology or other economics, history, maybe political science or maybe pure sciences, whatever you are, like every field has its own compendiums or abstracts of researchers that have been done, right? So maybe the previous 100 years, previous 50 years, if not 50 years, at least previous 25 to 30 years, what type of researches have been done in your own field. So that need to be checked. Why you need to check that? Like what research is already being done, it need to be checked because in order to find out the gaps in the literature. So there may be areas as revealed by a depth of available literature on the topic that remains unexplored. So here, there might have been a lot of research to talk about maybe education or psychology or whatever it is. There are areas, like for example, when we talk about intelligence or creativity or maybe personality, development or maybe job satisfaction, or there are these type of topics where there are multiple number of researchers, n number of researchers, there are millions and millions of researchers which have been done for the last maybe a century or more, and everything is being explored. There is nothing new that you can once again venture into and find a new solution. There are established theories. And there are certain areas, upcoming areas, where there are researches which have been done. There are still a lot more left which is not touched at all, which needs a further investigation. There may be areas which are very new, wherein there may be very handful of researchers conducted, which requires further validity, which requires further repetition, which requires again maybe the new aspects of to be added or dimensions to be added to the already existing areas. So for that particular purpose, you need to do the previous researches, that is called review of related literature. Related literature means already researches have been conducted in the area in which you are interested previously by other researchers, maybe in your own country or maybe abroad. How well that they have conducted the research, how exhaustive it is, whether there are multiple number of researchers or how long that particular concept is being explored. Just now I said, for example, if you take up intelligence, there is nothing that again once again further you can explore into it. Okay, because there are multiple, there are for more than 100 years, for more than 100 years or much more than that, lot of researches have been done. And there are new areas where still it need to be done. Like when we talk about multiple intelligence. Now multiple intelligence, earlier we thought that intelligence is not a single factor, but intelligence is dimensional. We have different types of intelligence. We have mathematical intelligence, we have linguistic intelligence, we have spiritual intelligence, right? We have mathematical intelligence. We have, that means almost all your general IQ tests, like whether it is flexibility, whether it is mathematical ability, whether it is language ability, in your general competitive exams and all that, they are all measuring different types of intelligence. There may be spatial intelligence, there may be, nowadays there are a lot of other types of intelligence have been added up. Guilford gave certain dimensions of intelligence, types of intelligence. Now, lot more is been added. People, they are talking about the spiritual intelligence. People are talking about naturalistic intelligence. People are talking about emotional intelligence. There are so many dimensions have been added up. And now when we talk about the naturalistic intelligence or the emotional intelligence or maybe spiritual intelligence, so this part of the intelligence, there are the upcoming areas or newly added dimensions to intelligence. It requires a further research. It requires further investigation. So while you do the previous research to see like whether exhaustively whether research is available on some topic, you need not take again, because you cannot repeat the same topic which is already been conducted and where there are established findings are there. Or wherever there are findings which are inconclusive, people have not come to an understanding, where there are no conclusive results, there is a room to conduct the research, to come up with further investigation. There are areas where very little research is done and it requires further investigation. So in order to see that what is already done, what requires further to be done, what requires an added dimension to be investigation, right? It requires that we go back to the previous researches which are available in the form of literature. They are available in the form of journals, they are available in the form of abstracts, they are available in the form of compendiums, they are available in the form of dissertation abstracts, internationals. See, in India, in education and all that, we are having that NCRT, earlier M.B. Buch from Baroda University, he used to compile every 5 years all over the country, in all the universities, whatever the researchers have been done, they used to compile an abstract of research with the university and the investigator topic, and maybe in 2 paragraphs or just in 1 page, the abstract used to be given. That is to check what type of researchers have been done. And there are dissertation abstracts international, so which are from US, that is America, all over the world. Like almost all. There are 2 types of volumes. One is for the pure sciences, that is pure sciences including the biological and natural sciences. The other part is for social sciences including the behavioral sciences. People who are doing research in social sciences or behavioral sciences like education or psychology, they can refer to dissertation abstract international, that is social sciences part. Those who are conducting research in pure sciences can take up the other volumes, that is in the pure sciences. So all over the world, whatever the researchers have been done, so every month they compile and there is a compendium, and they are available in most of the leading libraries and in universities, maybe even in probably colleges also. So that will give you an idea, like even the current journals, like what if you go back to the back volumes of journals and the present journals, you will understand what type of researchers have been done and what type of researchers are having a scope and what researchers are having a futuristic scope. So that is called as review of related literature in order to find out a gap. Gap in the sense, what is already done, what is not done, what needs to be added up, right? What needs to be added up means wherever there are findings which are inconclusive. Inconclusive means nobody has established that it is right or wrong. Still there is a room for further conducting. And if there are areas which are untouched, nobody has taken up a research on that particular area, and those areas can be selected. So you are identifying the gaps in the literature. Literature in the research is being done in the area, but still here and there certain aspects have been not conducted. Not research is not conducted on those aspects, and those aspects can be picked up by you. So because by repetition of research, the same topic, same variables, or maybe the similar type of sample, that becomes plagiarism. So in order to see that whatever the topic that you have selected is a new topic and you are not repeating somebody's research work, so for that it is very, very essential that you do the review of related literature. So without that you will not know whether the topic which you are selecting, whether it is already been investigated or not, is not known to you without doing review of related literature. So in order to find out the gaps, you should do the literature review. So in order to do the replication. So what do you mean by replication? Just now I said there are a few researchers which are being done maybe abroad. You do not know if you have the same findings, whether those results will hold good to our situation, to our Indian context, or maybe in your local context. So still you have a room to take it as a model, right? To take it as a model, to adopt it, to change it on a different place, on a different sample, right, or a locale. You can conduct the research and see the findings, whether the findings are similar, whether the findings are different. So for the purpose of replication, right, replication. So the previous researchers would also help a researcher to see like what is already done, how they have done it, what they have done it, right, what tools they have used, what procedures they have used, what type of questionnaires they have used, how they have interpreted the results, what statistical analysis they have done, right? So all this would help a researcher if you do the review of related literature. Apart from that, every research, any thesis for that matter, we have towards the end of the research thesis the suggested studies. Suggested studies means suggestions for further research. So suggestions for further research is a very, very important part. Whatever a researcher could not do by himself or herself due to paucity of time or resources or energy or maybe lack of data available, because everything under the sun cannot be explored by a single researcher. A researcher will establish a scope. He will have a limitation. He will have a scope. So only within that scope he will conduct the research. But as a researcher, when he is conducting the research, he would know that would have been good that if this part could have been investigated, or this aspect should be investigated. If at all, if I go further and this part should be investigated, and this type of research study can be taken up. Because of the long experience, any researcher who's working in the field, whether minimum 3 years, 4 years, 5 years or 10 years, they would get to know like what other dimensions or aspects of the particular research problem can be further investigated. And all such type of aspects or dimensions, usually a researcher will put it in the form of a suggestions for further research towards the end of the thesis. So like usually now we are having a lot of the stored data are available, and now we are having a lot of data through the UGC, and you are having Shodh Ganga, and all theses are electronically, they are stored. And if at all, if you are going through and you cannot copy the material, you cannot use the material, but you can go through those researchers, go through those theses, you can get to know what type of methodology is being used, what tools have been used, and what statistics have been used, and how the experiments have been conducted, and how they have interpreted, and that would give you an idea. And every thesis will have a part included, that is the suggested studies or suggestions for further research. If you go through those suggestions for further research, you will get an idea, like you can select a topic from out of that they would have given lot of suggestions for further research, and that part you can select it for further selection. And that is possible when you are doing review of related literature. Either you can go through the journals, or you can go through maybe the dissertation abstracts internationals, or maybe the compendiums or abstract. And nowadays there is a lot of digital data or material available, like in India we have Shodhganga, all the thesis electronically, they are stored there, right? You can go through them and you can get to know how the researches have been conducted, what methodology is being used, and what further suggestions are given. From that you get an idea that what topic can be selected for further investigation. So that you can get it, the suggestions for further research, only when you do the review of related literature, whether it is in a digital form or whether it is in a physical form. And other one, inconsistency. That inconsistency, just I said, not especially when it, usually when it comes to pure sciences, whenever there are researchers, there is a, whenever it comes to reliability, when it comes to the validity, more or less they are perfect to the 100%. But when it comes to the social sciences and behavioral sciences, since social sciences and behavioral sciences, we deal with human beings, we deal with human problems, whether they are social problems or economic problems or whatever the type of problems are, maybe with the human beings, there cannot be, it cannot be reduced to a formula, right? Human behavior cannot be reduced to a standard formula, because when you are conducting a science experiment, so if you are following a standard method, that the results every day, wherever you conduct, whichever place you are conducting, following a standard procedure, the results will be same. When it comes to social sciences, when it comes to behavioral sciences, the same researcher, right, on the same sample, in the same place, in the same manner, even if it is repeated 100 times, right, you may get the results 95 times correctly or in the same manner, or 99 times correctly, but not 100%. That is why we are having a 5% of error and 1% of error in social sciences or humanities or whatever we call it as behavioral sciences. You must have seen the result or the findings are significant at 0.05 level or 0.01 level. What do you mean? The results are correct 95 times and there is a error by chance 5%. And there is, in case if the results is correct 99% and there is a chance error of 1%. And there cannot be a 100% consistency. So whenever we are talking about social sciences, behavioral sciences, since no two studies sometimes repeated, even on same sample, same locale, there cannot be consistency. When you are repeating on different samples in different locality and all that, there can be a difference of results. So in order to see how, whether you get the same results or not, the studies can be further repeated. And the second important source for selecting a problem is through the theories. It can be tested in the real world through the formulation of research problem or research hypothesis. Just now Professor Harsha was telling there are so many psychology as well as education people. You must be knowing there are theories of reinforcement, there are theories of motivation, right? There are so many theories are there. And even generally all teachers, we believe, whenever there is a proper reward for the students, for the children, their performance increases. Whenever the rewards are stopped and whenever there is a when no rewards are given or when no motivation is given, probably the performance may go down. Here, in order to see whether it happens really in a real classroom situation or not, we can check it. So how do we check it? You can have an experimental group and you can have a control group. Maybe in an experimental group, you can just have the students with all the rewards given, or maybe with a control group, you may not give any rewards to the student. Probably the students who does not receive the reward, any sort of encouragement or motivation from the teacher, when they see that the other group is being treated very differently, they may personally get motivated. They may also want to take it as a challenge. They may also want to do it better on par with the other group, and they may perform well. Because you have seen many a times that in this case OU, almost all the courses are just given through a distant mode. But the student is highly motivated. Whether the teacher is constantly is not present physically, but still they have a goal, they have a destination, they have a material made available to them, they study on their own and they achieve the goal. So many a times the reinforcement theories, the motivation theories that we are talking about, many a times they fail. And one should be very, very careful that when you want to disprove a theory, one requires a lot of data and a lot of evidence, because it is very easy to make a theory. It's not very easy, it's quite difficult, right, to have a theory. In order to disprove a theory, you require the double the effort, the double the data, the double the evidence to disprove that certain theory is wrong or that certain theory is also applicable in the real world. So that can be a source for problem selection. And as I said, most of the time what the researcher, the beginners or maybe the novice or people like you also consult the experts in the field, or maybe your guides who have been allotted to you. They will tell you like what areas of research are having a futuristic value or having a scope, and what type of areas that you should investigate, and what type of topic that you can select, and they may ask you further to have discussion with other experts in the field and then select a problem. So the consultation with the experts or discussion with the experts, that is even through brainstorming or maybe having a discussion and all that, thorough discussion in the field can also help you in selecting a topics. So the expert's opinion can also be another important source for selecting a problem. As I already said, the funding agencies. Funding agencies such maybe like government agencies or maybe even private or non-governmental agencies, they will assign you with certain work, like how a particular scheme is working or how a particular work is going on. I worked on Government of Karnataka's Radio Kelikali program funded by MHRD. Okay, so they want to know, after implementing it in 50,000 schools or something, after investing so much of resources, money and all that, what is the result? What is the outcome? How is going on? And what should we do further? And if it is not being very effective, what has gone wrong and what is to be done? So the funding agencies will have certain terms and conditions. So they want to know exactly like what is happening, why it is happening, and how that can be rectified. They would have certain goal. Based on that, you will be conducting a research. But this is not for a novice. This is not for a beginner. This is only for maybe the experienced researchers. Usually, the funding agencies, they have their own goal. They have their own research topics or maybe problem. They want the experts to investigate and come out with a solution. So that is another important source for selecting a topic. But since you are all people who have got your admission to a PhD program, maybe the funding agencies and all that, that has to be a later aspect, but not now. But that is one of the important source for selecting a problem. And the next one is personal experience. Maybe individuals, they confront so many problems in their day-to-day life, and as many of you are from the teaching profession as teachers, especially, I'm not talking about people from pure sciences, maybe people from the background of education or psychology and all that. When you are confronting certain problems, maybe in the classrooms, or maybe with regard to the evaluation, maybe with regard to the students' behavior, maybe with regard to the classroom managements, right? Or maybe with regard to the motivation and all that, there are various things which you feel that it is a problem, it need to be investigated, and you need to find a solution to that. So that type of personal experience. And when it comes to the pure sciences also, people who are already working in the labs, people who are already working in the field as teachers who are also experienced and who know that this is a problem, and further that can be investigated and solution can be found for that. And that personal experience can also be a source for selecting a problem. Now you know, like there can be so many sources, whether from your own personal experience or maybe discussion with the experts or through review of related literature or maybe again can be funding agencies. You know from whichever source, it can be all the sources that you can go through. You can do the review of related literature, then you have discussion with the experts also, right? And then you may come to select a problem. So before finalizing a problem, you need to answer certain questions. And if the answers to those questions are in yes, only then you should go ahead in finalizing the problem for your research as a topic. Otherwise, you need to go back and search for some other topic or maybe a problem. So those questions we are calling it as a criteria for selecting a problem. One part is the source from which the topic or a research problem can be selected. And once you know the source and you have selected broadly and roughly some topic, now that should undergo certain tests. And what those tests? There are certain criteria or there are certain questions to be answered. And what are those criteria? Now, after a tentative topic, not that before finalizing a tentative topic is selected, it must be evaluated. Andre, ಒಂದು ಸಂಶೋಧನೆಗೆ ಒಂದು ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಅಂತ ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ನಂತರ ಅದನ್ನು ಮೌಲ್ಯಮಾಪನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. What is that evaluation that you are going to do? Evaluation in the form of a criteria. And that one must be confident that the problem area is of sufficient importance to warrant investigation. So, any problem that you have selected for research, it should be worthy. It should be worthy in the sense it should not be insignificant. It should hold importance. It should hold importance to be called as a doctoral research. When you are conducting a research, many a times when thesis comes to us for evaluation, so far I must have adjudicated some 500 to 600 theses from all over the country and from even abroad. Sometimes we feel how to award a PhD degree for this type of a topic. I wrote to one of the private universities, let alone a PhD degree, it does not even have the worth of awarding a PG dissertation. Such type of topics are also being selected, and that should not happen. No evaluator, no adjudicator or no expert should think that it does not work. Right? It should be worthy. Worthy in the sense when you are conducting a doctoral research and you should see what value or what worth. It should not be insignificant. It should be of significant value, or it should have an important trustworthy or important contribution. And now judging the worth of a problem is a matter of individual values and subjective opinion. What I consider, because when you say, somebody may say, no, this topic is very, very good, and somebody may say that it is very, very insignificant. So it is a value judgment. So it is subjective. For one, what is good may not be good for other. So it becomes a value judgment. So in order to avoid whether it is correct or not, whether it is worthy or not, in order to, instead of doing the value judgment, you should keep certain criteria in mind, then you should go ahead with selecting a problem. What time should be the break? 4, okay. I think if you can remind me, okay, then I will stop. So one should show that the study is likely to fill the gaps in the present knowledge to help resolve some of the inconsistencies. Perhaps this study can improve upon earlier researchers in a way that more reliable knowledge would be made available. Here, whenever you are conducting a research, you should show that this particular research is worthy because it is going to fill a gap which is not done earlier. Nobody has touched upon. No research is conducted on this. So in order to do that, I am doing it. Or maybe it can be whatever the knowledge that I am drawing from this particular research, it is a reliable knowledge. Here, the first important criteria, just now I said, once a tentative topic is selected, and that topic should be evaluated. How are you going to evaluate? In order to evaluate, there has to be a criteria, and these are the criteria. One criteria is whether that selected topic is going to make a contribution to the body of organized knowledge in the field, right? Whatever the topic that I have selected for researching, whether it is going to make contribution to the existing body of knowledge, cumulatively, right? Here, the present knowledge in the sense, whenever there are, I say, whenever there are inconsistencies in research. What do you mean by inconsistencies? When the results are not conclusive, when there are no established results. Somebody says, yes, the result is like that. Somebody says, no, the result is not like this. There is inconsistency. There further, there is a room for conducting research and to say whether it is yes or not. So, by doing that, you are adding up to the existing knowledge. And sometimes, maybe by any topic that you have selected for research should make a contribution either in theory building or in practical aspects. So, for example, like in pure sciences, we are having like solar system or whatever it is. There's a lot of research. They are called as fundamental research, pure research. So that helps in theory building. That means without that fundamental research or without that pure research, you do not know what is the existence of that. Based on that pure research or fundamental research, usually many a times the practical researches are conducted. But for example, now there are a lot of medical research, or there is also a lot of research, technical research and all that. And wherever there is a medical research, they are all contribution to the practical problems. There are diseases, there are health issues. In order to solve that, these researches have been conducted. Even in the field of education also, it should either contribute for theory building or it should contribute for solving a practical problem. It should help in maybe acquiring a reliable knowledge, because research is conducted in order to acquire a reliable knowledge, because research is to find out the facts or to find out the truth, right? So research should be conducted like what it should be or what it ought to be, not it how we want it to be, because we do not know whether it is what it is. Only after conducting research we will find out what it is. And it should not be like what we want it to be, right? Research is conducted to find out the truth or to find out the facts. So any research that we have topic that we have selected, we should pose a question, say, is it going to make a contribution in acquiring a reliable knowledge either for theory building or for practical knowledge, right? Or it can be for both. Either it can be for either one or it can be both. So only when the answer to this particular question that it is going to make a contribution to the theory building or to the practical solution of a problem or might be both, then you should go ahead because it has passed the first test, that is the criteria that it is going to make a contribution to the organized body of knowledge. Now the second one is the topic should lead to new problems, so to further research. So whenever you are selecting a problem, it should have a scope for further research. So you must have seen in our day-to-day life, like very simple thing. Whenever you are planning even a simple construction of a building or something, you see, in case in future if I want to expand it, so how do I go about? Whether I can expand horizontally, whether I can expand vertically. So in future, in case if it is required. So if there is a end of it, if I cannot do it for my futuristic purpose, then that particular thing is of no use. But here, whenever you are conducting a research, whatever the results that you have found out, maybe there are other aspects, other dimensions. It should lead to further investigation, more and more investigation. Only such type of topic should be selected. If the topic of the research is an end in itself, such topic should not be selected. It must have passed in the first criteria. When it comes to the second criteria, and if it does not help a researcher to put suggestions for further research, right? If you cannot make any suggestions for further research, such topic should not be selected because it has failed in the second criteria. So here, if you select a topic where after conducting a research, if a researcher out of the experience, if he can suggest, so there are the various ways the present topic can be further investigated, that is research for further, that is suggestions for further, only such topic, that means the answer is yes, then you should go ahead, but because it has passed in the second criteria too. Example for the sense, like many a times you are conducting a research, actually I spoke about intelligence. I spoke about intelligence. There are a lot of researches have been done. But now, further, if at all if you want to find out whether intelligence and the student's academic performance is related or not, it's a simple topic. And if the answer, there are already thousands and lakhs of studies which have suggested, yes, a person who is intelligent, who is capable of solving a problem, have an adjustment, can perform well and better and everything. And usually, through intelligence, there are multiple number of suggestions have been given and n number of researches have been done. Now, if at all, if you want to say, many a times, like if at all, if you have research, if you say, if you have a research on study habits and maybe on performance, by increasing the study habits of the students, you can increase the performance. How to increase the study habits of the student? There can be 1,000 ways you can suggest to improve the study habits. If you say intelligence and performance is related, now intelligence is it's not an acquired attribute, it is an inherited attribute. You can sharpen intelligence. You can, you can make individual to develop creativity, but not developing intelligence. Developing intelligence because it's not possible, because it is an inherited ability. It is an inherited ability. You cannot tell that make student intelligent. A person with an intelligence of 90 or 95, you can sharpen his experience by giving lot of exposure, by giving lot of experience. His performance you may increase, but you cannot change intelligence. You cannot change intelligence, because if at all if you say that I want to change intelligence, because whatever the intelligence that is there, it is an end of it. But now a person with less intelligence, what can be the other techniques to sharpen and to improve the experiences of an individual, where he can, performance can be improved, can be done, but not the increasing the intelligence. So there are certain projects, there are certain things, after finding out and after knowing the results, you cannot further go ahead with that. You cannot further go ahead with that. That would be end of it. In case if you want to go further ahead, if it does not allow you to go ahead further, then that type of problem should not be selected, because the research should not end in itself, because we said it is a continuous adventure. It is not a single one-shot business, it is a continuous adventure. And now, the third one, the topic should be researchable. And this is mainly, we are talking about the behavioral sciences or social sciences. So whenever you are selecting a topic, it should be researchable. Researchable, there are some of the characteristics, though in social sciences or maybe in behavioral sciences, though there cannot be 100% precision, accuracy or objectivity, but when you say that it is research, research has to be accurate. Research has to be precise. Even in case of behavioral sciences or humanities or social sciences, even if the accuracy or precision is not 100%, at least it has to be 99%, or it has to be at least 95%. If the accuracy or if the precision of accuracy is less than 95%, then it is rejected. Then it is rejected. Now, what does it mean? Because even in social sciences, in behavioral sciences, we are following some methodology. And in behavioral sciences, especially when we talk about education or psychology or even the management sciences and all that, most of the time, like whatever the characteristics of a scientific method are there, and those characteristics should be adopted in conducting a research. So there has to be an objectivity, it has to be observable, right? It has to be repeatable, right? It has to have a definite method. When we say that observable, a very, very important character. When you say observable, when you are doing something that should be observed by all others, and there should be a scope, and there should be a place where the other people should also be able to repeat it in the similar manner, right? It should be repeatable. So observable and repeatable. When we say observable and repeatable, something which is objective, which can be seen, and something which cannot be seen by all, which cannot be repeated by all. Such type of things we call it as either value based or sometimes it may be even spiritual, and those things cannot be researched. Like for example, I just want to give like what cannot be researched, like certain times the philosophical questions. Like philosophical questions where it is value based, or maybe certain philosophical questions like whether God exists, If at all, if I want to research God exists, there are people, there are saints, there are prophets, there are people who say they have seen God, right? They have experienced, like we say, like Buddha, we say like Mahavira, there was an enlightenment. So it means they say that they have gone and it is an experience of meeting with God. There are saints, there are people, there are prophets. So they have that spiritual connection. And if at all, if somebody says, if you can see God, you show me also, right? What they experience cannot be experienced by others, because the experience differs from person to person depending on the level of that connection, the spirituality that they are having. If somebody wants to say, I will research where is God, and the characteristics of research is that it should be observable, it should be repeatable. And if you say that, yes, I have seen God, I have met God. If others ask you, you show me also. I want to also by following, I also want to repeat, I want to see where is God. That is not possible. So, wherever it is not possible to observe by others, repeatable, observable, have that experience, such type of philosophical questions are called as value-based or maybe spiritual ones or philosophical ones, and that type of questions or that type of research problems which cannot be researched should not be considered for conducting a research. Like when you are taking a research for a PhD, right, for your doctoral research, things which cannot be researched. Cannot be researched means you cannot repeat, you cannot show, you cannot allow other people to observe what it is, right? And you cannot see that the others can also follow the same model and get same experience. So such type of philosophical question should be avoided when you are selecting a topic for research. So they are called as researchable topics should be selected. So researchable topic should be selected. As far as possible, the philosophical questions, this is true with regard to maybe the behavioral or humanistic or social sciences. The topic must be suitable for the particular researcher. And in case if a researcher, the topic he has selected is one that the answer to the question whether it makes contribution to either theory or practice, the answer is yes, he will go ahead. The next question, like if he says that whatever the question that we are putting in, the criteria, if he says yes, you are selecting it. The third criteria, that researchable, that he says yes, you are going. The final selection based on whether the topic which is selected is suitable to the researcher, because it is the researcher who is going to conduct the research. If the topic selected is not suitable to researcher, you cannot go ahead with that. What is that suitability? One is that there are certain personal aspects of a researcher you should keep it in mind. One is genuine interest. One should know the topic that the student or maybe the researcher is selecting, whether the individual is having a genuine interest in it, or whether the individual is enthusiastic about it, or whether the person that who is selecting a topic has got certain knowledge in that particular field, has certain knowledge in that particular area. So having a knowledge maybe in a particular area is very, very important. That means genuine interest is very important, enthusiasm is very important, and only when somebody has got a very genuine interest, passion towards it, they do that. Because many a times what happens, the student is interested in selecting some particular topic because of some personal experience or personal reason. And sometimes it also happens out of my own experience. I am just telling, seeing so many students for 40 years, maybe a research guide or some expert, somebody suggests, no, you take this particular topic, in which the student is not at all interested. So they don't want to go do research in that, they lose motivation and all that. In case if the student comes out with a problem which is researchable, which can make contribution, right, in which he has got genuine interest, the amount of hard work and sincerity that a student or a researcher puts in will be much more than the topic in which he lacks interest, right? So the passion is very important, genuine interest is important. Many a times they feel that they are not tired because they love to do that job. They love to do that job. So for that, a genuine interest in that particular area or in that particular research topic is very important, whether the student is highly motivated or whether the student is highly interested in it, or whether he is possessing a genuine interest in conducting a selected topic. That also has to be seen. That is a first important part. When it comes to that, knowledge and has some experience. Maybe the student must be having a lot of genuine interest. A student must be having a lot of enthusiasm. Until unless somebody has got some level of capability or some knowledge in that particular area, and one cannot do a research. For example, somebody who is purely an art student, maybe a student who has studied maybe history, sociology, or economics, or political science, something. And if they say, I am genuinely highly interested in conducting research in physics, I have a lot of interest in that, I would like to do PhD in that. You don't have a background. You don't have a sufficient knowledge, right? You don't have that expertise, and you cannot conduct research. However genuine interest you must be possessing. So, whatever the area of research that you are selecting, you need to have some knowledge about that. That is the reason. Education people or people with B.Ed or M.Ed are selecting a doctoral research in that area, psychology students selecting in that area, history students selecting in their own area, political science students selecting their own area, because they are having a background knowledge, because they are having a background experience. Only then you can conduct a research. If you do not have a background knowledge or even the ability to conduct a particular thing, sometimes we say, depending on the capability of the student, we try to adjust the research problem, whether a candidate is capable of conducting this type of problem, using this methodology, going ahead with that type of mixed methods and all that, whether some student can take up qualitative research, when some student, whether it is possible for some student to give a qualitative research, whether he is capable or not. See, many a times the student's enthusiasm may be there, but you also need to see whether the student has a knowledge, whether the student has the capability or the ability to do that. So that is very, very important. Like sometimes we say, no, as parents we push. We want all our children to become doctor, want to become that, this and all that. Until and unless the child performs, have that level of capability, right? A child who cannot pass the 10th standard for 10 times, imagine a child becoming a doctor. You may be having genuine interest, having a genuine enthusiasm, motivation, but one should have that capability also. So that capability, that knowledge is also very important, which is suitable for a researcher. What is such type? That means you can have aspirations, and that aspiration you should have the scope and you should have the limitation, and you should know, right, that the student is capable of doing it. And that is an important second aspect when it comes to researcher. The third particular part is feasibility or practical aspect. And what is that feasibility or practical aspect? There are so many things when it comes to feasibility and practical aspects. Sometimes you select a problem. Before selecting a problem, you should make sure on whatever the sample that you are deciding and whether those samples are available to you. Whatever the type of data that you want to collect, whether that you have access to that particular data or not, right? Or whether you are having that resources or not. See, these things are very, very important. Sometimes what happens, you start with a problem and you select a problem. I have certain students, maybe from some other universities, they have selected some problem, and maybe through internet some tool was available without a manual. They have also collected the data, and now the manual is not available to them. They don't know how to score. After collecting data, they don't know how to score it, and they do not know what is the reliability and the validity of that particular tool, on what level of subject that the tool was developed. Imagine at that level, what should happen to a research? Without a researcher, when you are preparing a proposal, you should make sure like whatever the sample you are selecting for your subject, that they are available to you. The data which you want to collect, whether the data is accessible to you. Maybe sometimes, like it has happened in Mangalore, for some reason we were there to collect some data from some patients from a hospital. The authorities, they very rigidly told the securities not to allow us inside. For whatever reasons, not to allow us inside to go and talk to the people. And this has also many times happened with researchers, like wherever there are special schools and all that, the students who have worked under me, they had to make sure before the problem is finalized with certain institutions, go and talk to the managements, go and talk to parents to see their children later for the research purpose, for conducting case study, for conducting interviews, for meeting them, for observing them, right? Only after making sure that that would be made available, subjects will be made available, data will be made available, you can go ahead with the topic. You cannot simply take a topic and later if the subjects are not available and if the data is not accessible to you. Or sometimes there are also somebody worked on prisoners. The records will not be made available. There was some candidate whose husband was in high position from the same field and the data was accessible. So depending on who can access data, right? You cannot simply select problem and later of the halfway, if the data is not accessible. There are certain data which is highly confidential that cannot be made known to you. Confidential data. You cannot simply select a problem, start conducting a research, and later you will get to know after spending 2 years or 3 years that this data is confidential, you cannot access the records. What should happen to a researcher? And some subjects you will select, and those subjects maybe some sort of people, they are not accessible to you. Then you cannot go ahead with your research. So you should make sure before finalizing the problem, whether the subjects are available, whether the data will be accessible, whether tools will be accessible to you, right? All these things, and the locale and the resources which is available to you, all these are feasibility and practical aspects, okay? So these things should be kept in mind before finalizing the problem. You may be very good, you may be having knowledge, you may be having genuine interest, right? You may be having, but it is not feasible, or if it is not practically not possible to get access to data sample, then you should not select such type of problem. And finally, when it comes to time and instruments. Time and instruments. Like time, allotted time. Maybe for a doctoral research, you may be having a 3 years of time or 4 years of time or 5 years of time. If you have a research problem and the research problem requires more time, if it requires 8 years, 10 years, then it is not feasible, it is not practical. The research should be completed within the schedule or within the time given to you. However good it is, if the research problem, if it cannot be completed within the time schedule given to you, you have the tools to be developed, to be constructed, data to be collected, meet the sample. For all that you require time. So you should be able to complete research within the given time, right? And if the time required is much more than the given time, then the problem is not suitable for a researcher. So these are all the things, that is the sources and the criteria to be kept in mind while selecting a problem. And once you do that, only then you can continue with defining your problem, finalizing your problem, having the definition, and then having the hypothesis prepared and go ahead with your preparing of the synopsis or maybe the proposal.